Picture the crowds. Not soldiers forced at gunpoint, ordinary people, cheering, waving flags, weeping with joy. Every dictator in history was lifted up, at least at first, by millions of normal, decent people who chose to follow him. That's the part we don't like to think about. It's comforting to believe tyranny is something done to people by monsters, to victims. But the harder truth is that dictators are usually built by their own followers. So the real question isn't how do evil men seize power? It's this: why do ordinary people, people like us, hand it to them? Our instinct is to say those people must have been different, crueler, more gullible. It's a nice thought, and it's wrong. Study the people who followed history's worst regimes, and you find teachers, farmers, clerks, loving parents. Not monsters, neighbours. Hannah Arendt went to watch one of the architects of the Holocaust on trial, expecting a demon. Instead, she saw a dull, ordinary bureaucrat. She called it the banality of evil. The uncomfortable point: the same levers that moved them are wired into all of us. Let's look at them, one by one. It almost always starts with chaos. Strong men don't rise when life is calm. They rise out of wreckage, a lost war, a humiliation, an economy in free fall, streets that feel unsafe. When the world stops making sense, freedom starts to feel less like a gift and more like a burden. And into that fear steps a man with a simple promise. I alone can fix this. I will make us great again. In Germany after the First World War, defeated, its money worthless, that promise didn't sound like tyranny. It sounded like rescue. People weren't trading away freedom. They thought they were buying safety. But fear alone isn't enough. The deeper pull is belonging. Real freedom is heavy. It means standing alone, making your own choices, carrying your own doubt. The psychologist Erich Fromm called what happens next the escape from freedom. When that weight becomes unbearable, people hand it to someone else. And a movement offers the perfect trade. Suddenly, you're not a lonely individual. You're part of something huge. A family, a mission. The uniforms, the songs, a sea of faces all feeling the same thing at once. For someone who felt small and lost, dissolving into that crowd doesn't feel like surrender. It feels like coming home. Now the movement needs one more thing: an enemy. Every strongman hands his followers a them, a minority, immigrants, foreigners, shadowy elites. And this does three things at once. It explains your pain. Your life didn't fall apart by accident. They did this to you. It unites the group. Nothing bonds people faster than a shared enemy. And it shields the leader. As long as the enemy is the problem, he never is. The target changes from country to country. The mechanism never does. Give frightened people someone to blame and they'll follow you toward almost anything. So the people are scared. They belong. They have someone to blame. Now comes obedience, and here it turns dark. In the 1960s, a psychologist named Stanley Milgram asked ordinary volunteers to give what they believed were painful, even deadly, shocks to a stranger, just because a man in a lab coat told them to. Most of them did. Not because they were sadists, but because when an authority takes responsibility, your own guilt quietly switches off. I was only following orders isn't just an excuse invented afterward. It's how the mind feels at the time. Add the fear of being the one who says no, and decent people do indecent things, one small step at a time. But surely most people can see what's happening? Often they can. Here's the trap. In a climate of fear, people hide what they really think and go along because everyone else seems to be going along. The economist Timur Kuran called this preference falsification. In private, millions have doubts. In public, they clap. And every person who claps makes it a little more dangerous for the next to stop. So the regime looks adored by all, when really it's held up by a room full of people, each too afraid to be first to speak. That illusion is powerful. It's also fragile, which is why these regimes can look eternal one year and vanish almost overnight the next. Underneath all of it runs a story. The strongman is never sold as a mere politician with policies. He's sold as a savior, chosen, destined, the only one who truly understands your suffering and can end it. Max Weber called it charismatic authority. People don't follow the plan, they follow the person. That's why facts bounce off. You can't argue someone out of a savior with a spreadsheet. Once a leader becomes the hero of your story, his failures become someone else's fault, and his lies become tests of your loyalty. So how does it actually happen, the slide from elected leader to dictator? Almost never in one dramatic night. It's gradual and mostly legal. Scholars who studied it found a pattern. First, capture the referees, pack the courts, tame the press, put loyalists over the police and the generals. Then knock out the opponents, sue them, smear them, co-opt them, or jail them. Then quietly rewrite the rules so you can't lose. Each step, alone, can be defended as legal, even reasonable. And that's the danger. There's rarely a single moment the alarms go off. Democracy doesn't usually die in a coup. It dies in 100 small surrenders, each easy to excuse, until one day you look up and it's gone. So why do ordinary people follow dictators? Not because they're evil, because they're afraid and lonely and proud and desperate for someone to make a frightening world make sense. Every one of those needs is deeply, ordinarily human. That's the real warning. The people who followed the worst regimes in history weren't a different species, they were us, under pressure. Which means the defense was never being smarter than them. It's recognizing the pattern, the crisis, the enemy, the savior, the slow surrender, while it's still early enough to matter. History doesn't repeat on a schedule. But the levers never change. And they're always within reach of any leader in any country who knows how to pull them.